Sorry, the audio is off. Sorry, audio is off. All right. Anyways, welcome, guys. Thank you for being here. I decided to do the stream because I didn't know if it would be a good idea or not, and a lot of that is going to depend on your guys' reception of it and if you guys like it or not. Because I didn't want it to seem like I was double dipping on the chapter or something like that, or if I was like trying to milk it too much, you know, for views or things like that. Like the chapter came out, I reviewed it, and is that enough? Or do you guys want a like a discussion video? Because there's two ways to do it. Because I can just read the chapter on my own and then put out a video of my opinions. Or we could do a live stream like this, where we kind of go through the chapter together and everybody can have input on the discussion and everybody can talk about it together. And, you know, you guys could give me more ideas of things that I probably didn't think about, you know, while I was reading the chapter. So I thought it might be a good idea for like community discussion. And I also figured if I just did a regular live stream tonight, that probably a lot of you guys would be asking about the Berserk chapter anyways. So I figured maybe I would just split it up, and I would do one live stream tonight where we only talk about the chapter. So we're just focusing on chapter 376 and Berserk in general. And then tomorrow I'll do like my regular weekly live stream where it's just a Q&A hangout. But then tomorrow I would want it to be like almost no Berserk content or questions and just like a regular hangout live stream. You know what I mean? So split it up that way, because I figured, you know, if since the chapter just came out yesterday, that's probably what a lot of people want to talk about, you know, on the channel. And I completely get that and respect that. And especially since it was a really good chapter. So there's a lot to talk about. There's a lot to dive into. So I figured I would just split the live streams up that way. I would just do like one fully devoted to Berserk discussion, and then the other one tomorrow that's just going to be kind of like a hangout, you know, whatever, like ask whatever kind of chat. So if you guys are down for that. Also, if this video does well, if this live stream does well and you guys kind of dig it and are kind of into it, then maybe from this point forward, you know, if a new chapter comes out, we'll do two videos. We'll do the chapter review, and then we'll do a live stream kind of Q&A, talk about the chapter, do a chapter discussion together. I think that might be pretty cool. So it's up to you guys. I don't know, whatever you guys are feeling, you know. Again, I didn't want it to seem like I'm like milking it too much or like double dipping to the point where it's like, you know, it's like, oh, Ryan just wants more views. I mean, obviously every YouTuber wants more views all the time, you know. Let's not sugarcoat this. But, you know, I do like have like a at least a semblance of integrity to a degree where it's like, well, I don't really want to milk one thing like, you know, over and over. So so I guess it depends on how you guys feel about it, how you guys respond to it. If you think it's a good idea and this live stream goes well, then we'll continue to do it that way. If not, I mean, this can just be like a one-off and just kind of like a casual, you know, discussion or whatever. But yeah, I mean, thank you guys for being here, man. There's a lot to talk about. I don't think there's nothing really explicit in this chapter. Like there's no nudity or, you know, explicit violence or anything. So I'm pretty sure I can show the panels on screen, or at least a majority of them. So I figured I would do that. You know, I won't be able to do that for like every Berserk chapter, but at least for this one, I think I can. And we'll kind of go through it in order, you know, just to keep everything on track in this live stream. And we'll go through like page by page or or, you know, event by event. And we'll try to just kind of discuss what's going on. I really want input from the chat for sure about your guys' opinions. Super chats obviously get top priority if you guys want to do that. But we'll just kind of go through it in order. Like I haven't done like a discussion video after a new chapter before. So it's kind of like a newer thing. So yeah, let's see. I do have... let's see. Where is it? I have it somewhere. So we can, that's not it. Where is it? There it is. Actually, that is like making sure I'm going live. Yes, it is. Okay. I probably should have checked that first. But yeah, how are you guys doing, man? How are you guys doing? You like the idea? Okay, cool. Either way is fine. I was thinking about Chitch coming back too. You know, there's a very good chance that Chitch is going to come back sooner than we think, especially where we see Guts in this chapter, man. It's very, very where Guts is in this chapter is very, very similar to where he was when he met Chitch for the first time. So I don't know, man. Anything could happen. Live streams about the new chapter would always be fun. Okay, cool. Was not a fan of the chapter. That's fine. Yeah, you don't have to be. I'm not here to get into like an argument with anybody, or I think everyone's opinion on it is valid. So, well, whatever you got to say, feel free to say it. No one's gonna come at you or block you or kick you out of the chat just because you have a different opinion. Or at least we shouldn't, Let's not do that. If I have any mods here, I don't even know if I do. But if I do, let's not kick people out for having a negative opinion if they do, But obviously if they're like, shit talking like Miura after he passed away and stuff like that, that's a whole different thing. Or spamming, that's like a thing. But if you just didn't like the chapter, I mean, that's fine. I mean, if you want to talk about it. Of course, I mean, I don't know why, like, I wouldn't go into a live stream talking about a chapter if I didn't like it. I would probably just ignore it. So it is kind of weird. But your opinion's still valid, and don't feel bad for saying so. I do need more caffeine, though, because holy shit. I was doing good, man. I was riding a good wave of pre-workout, had a good workout today. But my biggest mistake was that I ate before the live stream, and it slowed me down. I should have known. I shouldn't have eaten. I should have waited until after the stream. I was really hungry. I was like, all right, I'm going to have some chicken. And now I ate, and now it's slowing me down. So now I got to get myself back up to where I was before. Let's see. Get your money, bruh. I mean, I'm always trying, man. I'm always trying. All this time, Guts was in the astral world. So I would look at it like this. Berserk has kind of shown these moments where Guts is very, very much in his head, very much kind of just letting his emotions take over, very much letting the Beast of Darkness and all of that take over, as similar to the astral world, excuse me. The same way that like the dreamscape is similar. It's kind of like you're like detaching from your sense of self. You're like detaching from the physical in a way, like you're getting deeper and deeper into it. And that's kind of how I always looked at it. I don't know if there's like a specific way to explain it, or a much better way to explain it, but I've always kind of looked at it like, whether you're very much in your head, where you're very much letting emotions take over ration, when you're very much, within the dreamscape, or, more connected to like a dreamlike world, like the incubus when it attaches to Guts. He's more kind of bass in that world. Because the astral world, as it's explained in the manga, is very vague. And it seems like there's a lot of intricacies to it. Like there's a lot of layers. There's a lot of there's a lot of variety to it. So, it's not just like, hey, we're here in the physical world, and that's all there is. The astral world seems to be like all these different variations, all these different layers. There's like where the interstice where it overlaps, and then there's like the astral creatures, and then you go deeper, and then the deeper you go, the more that you lose your sense of self, the more that you lose the sense of who you are. I think it always just kind of relates to that. So, I would say, in a way, more in tune with the astral world. But then I guess, with Guts, he's branded, so technically he's always kind of like walking in both, right? But yeah, the opening of the chapter, as we see here, he's saying that he's being swept away, which I think is interesting. I don't know how accurate the translations are at this point. You never really know until there's like official translations. But I think it would make sense. I mean, because we've seen him kind of be taken over by his rage, by the Beast of Darkness before. We've seen him kind of get lost within himself like this. So I think this is just kind of like a visual representation of him kind of losing his sense of self, right? Which Schierke or the Moonlight Boy, have always been able to kind of pull him back out of, right? But this time he's all alone until Schierke shows up. So, got a super chat. Thank you very much from Mattias SBC. Appreciate it, brother. Thank you for the chat. Says, considering Griffith's final goal is to destroy magic trees around the world, do you think that we will see the equivalent of other Earth regions like Africa or the Far East until the end of the story? I don't think that we're actually going to see them, just because, I mean, if we do, I think it's going to be like a panel. You know what I mean? I don't think it's going to be, I don't think the area itself is going to be important more so just what Griffith is doing. And who knows, man, he might have like taken care of all that. Like Elfhelm might have been the last place that had the spirit trees that he wanted to take down, you know, because he's been doing that throughout the story now, you know, way back, you know, with Flora's mansion and before then and everything. So, you know, he's been doing work, man. And, you know, we see how he's able to kind of travel around the world using like the Stonehenge things, you know, to get where, using the, you know, the paths of the tree in the sky and all that. So it seems like he's got the work done. I mean, I wouldn't expect the manga to spend any significant amount of time showing that, since we already know what he's doing, especially now. I mean, probably a bigger chance in the Miura days, but I really do think that, you know, Koji Mori and Studio Gaga and all that, I think that they are, you know, not necessarily trying to rush, but they are getting us to the end of the story. Like, they're not going to meander or, you know, waste any time. Like, they're really just kind of propelling us towards the final act. And I think the end of this chapter is very, very telling as far as that's concerned. You know, it feels like we are going to be hitting the war. We're going to be hitting the actual war with Griffith, like, really, really soon. So I don't think they're messing around. I don't think they're wasting any time. And I think it's pretty much, it's going to barrel towards the finale. Now, when I say that, it'll probably still take like 20 years before the manga actually ends. But at least in story, you know, in universe, I think that we're really, really ramping up into it. So yeah, so we have Guts here kind of like within his consciousness, you know, and then Schierke finally arrives. Now, I might be forgetting some details, but I do remember, wasn't Schierke attempting to find Casca at one point? But then, maybe I'm mixing this up. I can't remember the order of events. But she was like going to find Casca. And then when they were on the boat, after Elfhelm began to be, you know, destroyed, Morta, you know, got her to go, you know, like, was like, hey, Guts is like really messed up right now. Like, we got, you know, you should probably do something about that. And Schierke tried to go get Guts, but she was kind of blocked out. Like, he just like wasn't letting her in. So she kind of shifted what she was doing. She was like trying to find Casca at first, I think, and then kind of shifted towards Guts. So I think that, I don't know if that kind of like messed her up or messed up like what she was doing. But now we finally have her seeing Guts, meeting him within the Astral world, and we have this great moment. I really like this, man. I really like this panel. I particularly like this image of Schierke's hand holding Guts's. You know, that's why I made it in the thumbnail. Because I just, you know, Guts, as rough and tumble as he is, you know, he there's that gentleness, right? And there's these people that kind of bring him back to his humanity. And I just like the image of like his. Of course, they don't really like draw a lot of damage on his hand because it's like the Astral version. But I like the juxtaposition of like Guts's hand and then like the tiny, more like daintier fingers of Schierke, and just like all these kind of gentle people that have been helping him. You know, it's I don't know, it's a really good image. I like that they focused on it. You know, when you're doing something like this and you're like trying to get to the end of the story, you know, you could potentially like just you could skip a moment like this. But I like that they didn't. I like that they emphasize, you know, the humanity, they emphasize the emotion, they emphasize the attachment. So I really like that. I like that they, you know, they focused on that, right? And then, of course, you know, this will work a lot better when you're reading it page to page as opposed to scrolling, you know what I mean? But they work it very well where you see the image of Schierke's hand helping Guts, and then it goes to Guts's hand by itself alone, you know, without Schierke, chained up. And that's kind of like, I don't know, it's a really good transition, and I appreciated it. And what you'll notice, too, I think, is that this cell, you know, it's very similar to when Guts met Chitch in the flashback. And I always thought the placement of the Chitch chapter was very, very important, because they put that chapter in, because Berserk has never really done a flashback, unless you count, you know, the entire Golden Age arc as a flashback. Which you can, but you know, besides that, they never really put in a flashback like officially. So what I thought was really cool about when they put the Chitch chapter in was that, I felt like it was meant to be kind of like a setup for something really important. That it wasn't just there for filler, that it wasn't just there to buy time, that it wasn't just there to give us a fun little short story. I think that it was there for a very important reason. And as the story has kind of gone on, I feel like those reasons are becoming more and more apparent. One of them being Chitch is not really dead. Chitch was attached to her flower. It was what was tethering her to the physical world. And when she used once the flower died, she could no longer be there, and so she vanished. Similar on a more massive scale that we saw in Elfhelm, when the giant spirit tree was destroyed by Griffith, the entire island and its inhabitants also vanished because there was nothing there tethering them to the physical world. And you can look at that even further with like the Ganishka tree, which has effectively tethered, a layer of the astral world to the entire planet, right? So there's all these different levels of it. So it's like, no matter how big or no matter how small, all of these things tend to work the same. And so I think it was really important to have that Chitch chapter to show us on a very small, like personal scale, with Guts just one-on-one, that this is how this thing works. But then if you look at it on more of like a global scale, it still works the same way. And, the whole chapter was built up to make us think that Chitch sacrificed herself, sacrificed her life for Guts. And it was a really sad moment. And it was meant to be deliberately sad. And we were meant to be deliberately swayed into thinking that Chitch was dead. But now that we see how these things work, you kind of realize, well, there's no reason that Chitch would actually be dead. She's just not here anymore. She's just incapable of being here, right? And so I think that she's going to come back before the end of the manga. I don't know if this would be a good place to put it, because it would, unless you said like another flower was able to grow in this cell and somehow Chitch attached to it. I don't know how that would work. But wouldn't it be interesting, just as like a thought experiment, wouldn't it be interesting if Guts is here broken alone in his cell, and the person that gets him out of it, that gets him out of the funk, is not any of his friends, is not, Rickert, is not, Farnese. What if it's Chitch? What if Chitch shows up to parallel the first time that he met her? And like the motivation and inspiration that he would get realizing that not only was she real, but she's been alive this whole time. That would be crazy. I don't think they're going to do that, but it would be an interesting place to put it. I think an interesting moment in the story to put it in. I think, anyways. And the drawings are good. Some people noted that Guts doesn't have the white stripe in his hair, but I think it could be a lighting thing. He could be just in a dark cell. You could see like the lights coming from behind him, and you could see in this panel, the one that's closer up on his face, they do draw the white hair. So I don't know. I think it's more of just like an aesthetic thing. I don't really think it's meant to mean anything. I think that just sometimes with different lighting and different drawings, like some things aren't going to be as apparent as others. Like I wouldn't put too much stock in it, is what I'm saying. Got a super chat. Thank you very much from Allah something Kareem 8055. Thank you very much, man. Femto no diffs all of Berserk by blinking. How the fuck will Guts and company win against all of Falconia? It's like another eclipse. Gonna be some ass pull, bro. Well, yeah, you could say like the eclipse itself is an ass pull, right? No. Yeah, I think that, I've always said that it's not going to be a matter of powering up our characters. I think it's going to be a matter of depowering Griffith in some way. Not that I don't think that they will get power-ups. I do think that, the Dragon Slayer is going to be powered up. I think Guts is going to find a method to master the Berserker armor. I think there will be, but if you look at Griffith's army, it is filled with apostles, right? But other than Griffith himself, apostles are incredibly powerful, yes, but they are flesh and blood, and they can be killed. If you have an entire army fighting against them, I think it's possible that you could take some of them down, especially if you have characters that use magic. You've got a lot of magic users here. You've got Schierke, if she wakes up. You got Farnese. You got Daiba. You got Gedfring. You've got Morta. You've got the other witches there. So if you got a whole team of mages with a whole team of fighters, I think it's possible that you could take some of them down, especially if you have like a strategy to do it. If you have a setup that makes it very difficult for them to enter the current kingdom that they're in. Plus, I mean, it's fantasy. I mean, you could call it an ass pull, but I think that there's lots of different ways that you could do it that it would make sense. I mean, how many times have you watched movies, Lord of the Rings or something, where you have, human characters going up against, a ridiculous amount of powerful enemies? Like, it's possible. You know what I mean? You just have to have the right method to do it, I suppose. Poonsy sends in a super chat. Thank you so much, man. Thank you for supporting the channel. He says, how do you feel they circle back around to the old God Hand in King Geyser's story? They never really explain the change in God Hands. What's your theory behind it? I don't really have an answer. Like, I'm not really sure. The only thing that I've come up with is pretty much what other people say, is that every kind of 1,000-year cycle, the God Hand kind of repeats. So, like, you just imagine that, like, the final God Hand of one iteration becomes the first God Hand of the next iteration, and then it's built up, every 216 years, there's another one and another one and another one, until they become powerful enough to bring the final one in that acts as the Messiah that goes into the human world, changes something significant about the world. Some giant cataclysm happens. Perhaps the God Hand are destroyed within that cataclysm. I don't know. And then it goes and recycles and creates a new God Hand for a new generation. I mean, I don't know. That seems to be the thing that makes the most amount of sense to me. But other people have said other things. I mean, some people say that the old God Hand that we saw isn't actually the God Hand. They say it was something else. Or they say it was, the Elemental Kings, which I don't buy into because they don't look... Only one of them looks like he could be vaguely elemental. The rest don't. So I don't really buy that one. Other people have also said that, Skull Knight killed the other God Hand, but I don't buy that one either because my argument for that has always been, if Skull Knight had a way to kill the God Hand before making the Baelit sword, then why would he go through the trouble of making it? You know what I mean? Like, he made that sword specifically to defeat the God Hand, and when he first uses it in the manga, he says specifically, this is my first time using it. So if he could already kill the God Hand before, then why would he need to make a weapon like this, for that intent? It just doesn't seem likely. Not to mention, like, he can't just go fight them, right? Like, he has to wait for the right moments for, like, something to happen to where he can enter their realm and fight them. Like, he can't just go there. He can't just, like, go kill them. Like, he has to wait for eclipses to happen. So, or something else. So, yeah, I mean, I felt like that never really made a lot of sense to me. Plus, I think that, like, thematically for the Skull Knight, I think the tragedy of his character is that his plight is kind of hopeless. Is that he can't kill the God Hand. Is that, like, no matter what he does, he fails. I think that he's the true struggler. Guts is the struggler, but Skull Knight is the true struggler. Because he's lost his humanity. He's lost everyone he knows and loves. He's a remnant of the past. He's from 1,000 years ago. He doesn't exist in this world. He can't pass on to the afterlife. Like, he's fucking stuck, He's stuck forever. Like, Skull Knight is the true struggler. So if you make it so Skull Knight can kill the God Hand, I feel like that kind of goes against, like, the cautionary tale of what he is, right? My leg's asleep. I really got to move it. I got to put blood back in my leg. Ugh. Anyways. But that's how I see it anyway. But also, remember, I'm just one dude, with one opinion. Like, I'm not necessarily right, I'll tell you what I think, but I'm not saying I'm right. Let's see. Next super chat was from Greatest Guru. Thank you very much, Greatest Guru, once again. No need for introduction. I support you because I believe in you. Can you tell us about your evolution since the 2018, kind of like Guts? Well, I do want to keep this stream pretty much focused on Berserk and the chapter, so I don't want to go into, like, a ton of detail. But Yeah, I mean, it's been rough, man. It's been rough. I mean, it's hard to like, how do I summarize this without like going into like a long monologue about my life? When it comes to YouTube in particular, that is kind of like around the time I started talking about Berserk on the channel, but I had the channel for many years before then. I've talked about a lot of different things, and I talk about like a ton of stuff on the channel, but Berserk is definitely one of those things that started to get picked up in the algorithm and started to be one of the things that, actually really, really helped out the channel. I had a couple big breaks concerning it. There was one chapter review where I was like the first person to put a chapter review out. So, the video got a lot of views. I remember waking up one day and the video had like 9,000 views overnight. And that was just like, at the time, every video I made was getting like, maybe 80 to 100 views. So I was like, what the fuck? Like, that's crazy. So it definitely helped and contributed to expanding and growing the channel, and I'll always value it and I'll always appreciate it for that. You guys that have been there from like the very start, like you, Guru, like I always appreciate it, man. There's a lot of other trials and tribulations along the way, a lot of struggles and a lot of failures after failures after failures, which still continue to this day. But I think that it's just a matter of not giving up. I think it's just a matter of continuing to do it no matter what. And that's the thing that I think most people fail at. I think most people fail because they give up, is because they stopped. It's like something they want to do, but then they make like 2 videos and then they never make any more videos. It's like, well, I was putting up videos like all the time and none of them were doing well, but I kept doing it for years and years and years and years. And then finally, 5 or 6 years into trying to take YouTube seriously, things started to pick up a little bit. So, perseverance, man. That's what it was. Leo Torres sends in a super chat as well. Thank you very much, Leo. Says, anything to see Guts get back up and contend one last time. Breaks my heart to see him half blind, barely able to hold onto a sword. It breaks my heart too, man. But I think it's good for storytelling. I think it's good to put your main character through the ringer. I think it's good to push them as much as you can and test them and put them through trials. One thing I really hate is when you just maintain the same status quo for a character like the entire story. Like I want to see characters push their breaking point, and then I want to see them rise up and overcome that. Like that's one of my favorite parts of reading stories or reading Berserk or, getting into different characters, is because you can see how far they can be pushed towards the negative and then still find a way to keep going or still find a way to rise up or still find a way to overcome despite everything that they've been through. So, it does hurt me, like as a fan of Guts, to see him in so much pain, but I want to experience it. Like I want to go through it to come out on the other end. Like I want to know how dark we can take this and if Guts can come back from it. That's kind of the fun for me. If Guts was just happy all the time, it wouldn't be the same story, right? So yeah, so I'm with you. I'm with you 100%. But at the same time, I feel like it's something that we have to go through. Like we have to endure it, in order for the story to make sense. And I think that a lot of the themes of the story are about experiencing like the darkest aspects of life and still finding a way to continue and still finding a way to move forward, and not giving into it. Right. A lot of people give up. Like I was just saying, a lot of people give up. That's how I look at every single apostle in Berserk. Is it's a man or a woman that reached their breaking point and gave up and gave in and says, I can't take it anymore. I sacrifice my love because my pain is so great. I'm willing to sacrifice somebody I love to end my pain, and that's truly the breaking point. And so I think taking a main character that's gone through more pain and more trauma than anybody else, and then putting him in that similar position and then watching him not choose to sacrifice anybody, watching him continue by his own merits, not reaching out for somebody else to save him. I love the scene that's on top of the Tower of Conviction. How everybody is running to the chapel because they're like, oh my God, the evil, like I need, somebody to save me. Please God, save me, yada, yada. And I love that when Farnese gets down and she starts praying And then Guts hands her a torch, and he's just like, stand the fuck up. He didn't say fuck, but in my mind, he did. He's like, stand the fuck up and fight. It's like, no one out there is going to save you. Like, you have to stand up and fight. You have to fight up back against this. You can't give up. You can't give in. You can't wait for somebody else to come save you. Like, stand up, grab the torch, and fight back. And I feel like that's like what the story means to me. Like, it's about fighting back and not giving in. It's about being pushed to your darkest point and still being willing to push back, I guess. Like, I'm sorry, off the cuff, I'm sorry, I'm not as articulate as I want to be. But, still be able to kind of fight and still be able to struggle and still be able to even enjoy things on the other end too, When Guts gets to the beach, and he watches, Casca playing in the water and stuff like that, and he's like, I never thought that I would experience a moment like this again, Well, the only reason he was able to experience that moment again is because he didn't give up and he didn't give in, I mean, there's times where he reaches really, really low points, but it's just like, that's the point. It's like, you have to take him to those low points in order to build him back up again, So we have him here. And then this building, somebody that's more educated than me probably knows that this building is modeled after the architecture of an actual building. But I couldn't tell you which one it is. And then we get Rickert here and Salat. A lot of dialogue from Salat, which I liked. He's always a character that I really, really enjoyed and has just never really had enough moments to shine because every time he does something cool, he's immediately outclassed by somebody more powerful than him. Like, he's immediately outclassed by Guts or like another apostle or something. It's like, I want Salat to have his moment, But yeah, they're leaving Guts tied up, which I think makes sense to me. I don't think that that's weird at all. I mean, especially since what they've been able to see him do. I don't think it's really weird that they would keep Guts tied up. You know what I mean? Then we get Daiba introduced here. And the other characters. A lot of Kushan here. A lot of Kushan warriors. And yeah, this is the moment that kind of concerns me the most. I actually think this is a pretty big deal. Seeing Schierke in this position, if she is kind of trapped within this astral realm, because I think the first time that they really warned about it was one of the first times where Schierke goes and tries to get Guts out of like the Berserker armor state, like way back at Flora's. Like, I really do think that, they were always setting this up. They were always saying, no, or was it? No, it might have been when she was fighting the trolls. When the group had their little D&D adventure. It might have been then. Where, not Flora, where Avalora says something about, like, it's very dangerous to be going into these astral realms because, your ethereal body could get lost there because it's so vast and there's so many different layers and all that stuff. So it's like, well, is that what's happening here? Like, are we finally experiencing that warning that we got like 200-300 chapters ago? Like, is this it? So yeah, I'm a little bit nervous, especially if there's a big fight coming, if there's a big war coming and Schierke's not there. Schierke has always been their ace in the hole. She's always been their backup. She's always been like, you need her there, right? I mean, Farnese, she proved herself, during the Sea God moment where she was able to create the force fields and stuff. So she's probably going to be the one to step up to the plate while Schierke is lost. But what's going to happen to Schierke, man? Like, are we going to get a chapter of her, like, within the astral realm? Is she going to, like, fall into something? Is she going to be, like, what the hell's going to happen to her, Guru sends another super chat. Thank you very much, Guru. Says, in the house that Daiba speaks of Guts, Trojan horse. What? Is the horse that Daiba speaks of Guts? The horse that he speaks of. Does he speak of a horse? Let's see. Young, capable of releasing her ethereal body. Of Durga aside, the martial potential of these people. Should I be able to command them? I don't know, my friend. I don't know. Maybe I'll get to it if there's a line of dialogue where he talks about like a horse or a Trojan horse. Or I could just be completely misunderstanding you. I don't know. Look at Gedfring. Why isn't Gedfring doing anything? He's just sitting there. Yeah. So what was I talking about? I don't know. I don't know what I was talking about. So anyways, let's keep going. So we have the other characters here. We have the other mages and stuff. So we got a whole team of magical characters. Like we were talking before, like how are they going to fight against apostles? Well, I mean, you have, essentially an entire army of magical characters here. So that's going to be extremely helpful, along with a bunch of trained warriors with the Bakiraka, along with our group of characters that are all pretty much capable of fighting, except for like Magnifico. It'd be cool if he turned into a badass. So I think you have a pretty good team here. You have like a pretty good group of characters to go up against apostles, I would say. Let's see. Yeah, so someone was saying I was probably misunderstanding this, where I read it as Salat thinking, let's see, am I to understand you set sail from Fairy Island far from here? It dissolved like foam on the sea over the course of a single night. Fleeting spume, a fairy tale. Like, I took it as he wasn't buying it, like he wasn't buying their story. But somebody else pointed out that he was saying, like, it's like a fairy tale, it's like a fantasy. Like, other characters have spoken like that over time. Like, when Griffith was first reintroduced into the world, like when he was like taking out all the armies and stuff, and nobody could hit him with the arrows, they were saying similar things of like it's like a fairy tale, like it's like a fantasy. And Skull Knight has also said similar things where it's like, it's kind of like you have to exist outside of the story in order to affect it, right? So could this just be playing into that, like that whole kind of theme of people saying that it is like a fairy tale or is like a fantasy? I don't know. Yeah, so then we got Daiba kind of thinking here on his feet. Once faced a man equal to me in battle. I like this kind of acknowledgement. Although I don't even know if you can tell if Daiba actually recognizes them at first, At a whole host of Dakin, Pashaka, water under the bridge now, call it a draw. I do like Serpico's reaction. I think that's a little funny, like comical moment to kind of throw in the chapter. You get Serpico being like, "Oh yeah, we did have that giant fight," and then Magnifico's reaction's my favorite. He just starts like shivering like a little bitch, because he probably remembers the giant snake. It's just my headcanon that Magnifico is afraid of snakes. That's never been established, but I just think that that's probably true. And then Mystic Gaming became is a channel member for 6 months. Thank you, man. We survived another boat arc. Yes, let's go. Yeah, I was all ready for it, man. I was ready for another boat arc. We didn't actually get it, which I didn't think that we would. I didn't think we would go through an entire other boat journey. I figured we would either skip it or something similar to what did happen, where the boat was invaded by somebody else, So we got Daiba here kind of thinking about how he wants to utilize them before I get to that image, which I know some people have also kind of said that, Daiba might have more malicious intentions, which could be true. But I think it's all a means to an end. Like, here's the way that you have to look at it is, they will say that our main characters are basically going to be forced to fight with them against Griffith's army, right? It's like, okay, now, if you get captured by somebody and then you're forced to fight, that's not something you want to have happen. However, in this world, in this universe, I think it was all going to lead to this fight anyways. So it's kind of just a means to an end. And I think it's just kind of like a way in the writing of the story just to have it so that none of our characters can leave. None of our characters can escape. Like, it's one of those things where it's like they're going to be forced to do it, but it was going to happen anyways. So I don't really have a problem with it. And I also think that they've established this multiple times. Like, they've talked about how when characters are captured in war, they're kind of forced to work for the other side. We've seen that with Griffith's group. Like, he had Kushan members working for him. Midland did it, it's actually, like, historically, I mean, Berserk isn't a historical manga, but, like, historically accurate that happens. Like, that happens in war. Like, you get captured, it's like, well, you could either die or you could work for us, you know? So, I mean, and it's not like they're going to be like bound up in chains and stuff like that. You know what I mean? So it's like, I wouldn't consider them, they're not like slaves, you know, they're not, you know, I wouldn't really think it's like that big a deal. But when you kind of step outside the box a little bit, you do kind of think like, well, what does that mean about like these Kushan? You know what I mean? Like, they're forcing them to do that, but it's just kind of like a protocol of war, you know? It's just like, that's what they've done all over. Jose, thank you very much, man. Sends in a super chat. Thank you very much. You didn't send in a question. I don't know if you meant to and didn't by accident. If you meant to, just put it in the regular chat. I'll try to find it. I haven't actually been watching the chat. Is everyone being good? Is everyone being a good boy and girl? I don't know. I need more mods. Who wants to be a mod? Who do I know? I don't know. And then Rakshas, thank you very much, Rakshas, sends in a super chat as well. Says, I don't like how Salat is in charge of the Kushans. In volume 22, in volume 22, Bakiraka were exiles on the bottom of the castle system. Yeah, but I would think that, you know, after Ganishka's defeat and kind of the destruction of the Kushan army in general, things have massively changed. And I could see Salat having a lot of authority just because of his history. You know, he is an extremely skilled warrior in his own right. He is the one that has some inside knowledge of Griffith and like the war that just happened from where he came from. Because remember, he escaped from Falconia, you know, with Rickert and everybody. So I think it makes enough sense for me. You know, obviously, I guess I get what you're saying, where it's like, you know, he's kind of the character that we know. So it's like, let's put him in charge. You know, it's kind of convenient. And I can understand that argument. It doesn't really bother me personally, though. I mean, I think there's enough there to kind of buy into why he would be highly regarded and highly respected. And it actually doesn't even mention him being like the leader, you know? He's just kind of in control of what we're seeing. Like, he's basically the one saying like, well, this is going to happen, then this is going to happen, we're going to do this. But it's all like protocol. He's basically like explaining what the protocol is, not necessarily the man that is like in charge, you know what I mean? I mean, he might be. It seems like he might be, but I wouldn't consider that to be like 100% confirmed. It doesn't bother me, you know? I don't know. I'm fine with it. A recognizable character to kind of tell us what's going on, to give us the exposition. I mean, I feel like it's all right. I can understand someone not liking it, but I feel like it's all right. And then Ruta something? Sorry, I can't pronounce your username. Sends in a super chat. Thank you very much, man. I appreciate it. Let's see. Hey, Ryan, how have you been lately? Have you ever considered writing a book or a comic? Appreciate it, man. I do want to keep it focused on the Berserk chapter for this stream, but I am going to do like a regular stream tomorrow for just like a Q&A hangout as well. But you sent in a super chat, so I will answer the question for you. So I did write a book when I was younger. It sucks, and you know, it wasn't that good, but it was a good test. You know, I tried my best with it. What I really want to do is make movies. That's kind of my ultimate goal in life, is that I want to write and direct films. So if I were to write something at this point, it would not be a book and it would not be a comic. It would be a script with the intention of hopefully filming that script at some point in the future. That's not something I can do right now because I just do not have the resources to make a movie. You need a lot of equipment. You got to pay actors. You got to pay editors. It's just like, I'm just not capable of doing it now. But someday in the future, that's like my ultimate goal. That's what I want to build towards. Like that's what if I have like a career goal in my life, it is to make movies. That's what I want to do. So I'm going to keep trying. I'm going to keep doing YouTube, you know, and maybe someday if I get up to like maybe 300,000 subscribers or something like that, maybe I'll open a Kickstarter, try to crowdfund, you know, do something like that to try to build up the budget for it or something. But that's what I want to do in my future. So yeah, it wouldn't be a book. It wouldn't be a comic. It wouldn't be a manga. It would be just me writing a script and then writing it with the intention to film. I did make a lot of movies when I was younger. In fact, if you become a channel member, I have a playlist of all the movies I made when I was a teenager and in my early 20s. Some of them we entered into like film festivals and stuff like that and never really like got anywhere with it, but you know, I tried. So if you want to see some of my old movies, become a channel member. They're on there. The reason why they're members only is because I think it's a fun treat for members to have. But then also, a lot of the people that were in those movies were my friends when I was younger. And I don't really know if they want to be like on the internet like that. You know what I mean? So I edited out all the credits so like their personal names aren't on there and stuff. And, that way the only people that are watching them are like big fans of my channel and not just like casually throwing them out there on the internet everywhere. You know what I mean? But so yeah, if you want to check some of them out, check that out. And then Max Owen sends in a super chat, sends in $1. Thank you very much, man. Appreciate supporting the channel. Thank you very much. And then Sneska became a channel member. Thank you very much as well. So yeah, you can check out my films now if you want to. If you want to. So anyways, we got to talk about this. This is next right here. And bless you, Studio Gaga. Bless you, Koji Mori, for keeping my main girl, future waifu, Morta, prevalent in the manga and giving me such a great panel of my future wife, Morta. Fantastic stuff, man. No, Morta looks great. By the way, if you look like this, DM me. Like I'm single. I'm down. Like, I'm just saying, if you look like this, DM me. But anyways, the point is, this actually makes a lot of sense too, because Morta has always been that character that kind of calls people out on their bullshit and kind of like goes around the rules and things like that. So the idea that Morta would be okay with just taking orders from Daiba, it's not going to happen. Or she's going to, be a little bit intrigued by maybe some of the darker aspects of Daiba's magic and maybe kind of, enhance that a little bit. Maybe take the ideas of it. She seems to be very perceptive when it comes to magic and very, very good at utilizing it. She kind of like views herself as being a little bit above the other members, like above the other students. Also, she's definitely willing to dive into like darker aspects of magic when it came to the Wicker Man and all that kind of stuff. So seeing her kind of like take orders from Morta or take orders from Daiba is probably not going to happen. So, there's something there. There's that mischievous look in her eyes that I'm always drawn to. But more than that, I think it has something to do with that. So yeah, next, we got what we were talking about before, where basically he's saying like, yeah, you came into Kushan territory, you're now refugees, you'll serve in our military, and like I said, it's a convenient way to get all our characters together and kind of force them to go into the fight, but the fight was going to happen regardless. So I think it's just, there's 1,000 different ways that you could write it so our characters are going to go to war and fight against the apostles. How do you want to do it? I think this way is just as good as any. You know what I mean? Like, I don't really have a problem with it, personally. And I try not to be like a blind fanboy or anything like that. Like, if I have problems with the manga, like, I definitely talk about them. Like, there's definitely things that Berserk has done in the past that I have not been a fan of, and I've been outspoken about it. So it's not just like I'm accepting every single little thing, but I just don't see a problem with this. I just don't see a problem with the way that they're making this happen. So yeah, let's see. Find herself gathering in this place. Would you call it if not good fortune? These people should get to hear us out, if only by virtue of who they are. Yeah. Okay, and then we have this. We have Isidro. Also remember, Isidro lost his mermaid girlfriend, so he's still pretty upset, man. He lost his mermaid girlfriend, number one, and then he saw the man that he looked up to, admired, and respected with Guts, kind of turn into this broken shell of a person that was unresponsive. So I imagine for Isidro, seeing something like that is extremely devastating. It's like Guts is always the person he's looked up to. Guts is always the person that he saw that was capable of doing anything, that was capable of fighting back against anything. And seeing Guts be so unresponsive and broken, it's like watching your dad, break down and cry or something. It's like watching, somebody that you look up to or somebody that you really admire, and then seeing that they're human. It's a tough thing, man. So I think this is the best development that we could get for Isidro, really. Because like I said, I was never a fan of Isidro when he was first introduced. It took me a long time to warm up to him, but having something like this happen in his life, I think is something that is definitely necessary, for the story. Martin sends in a super chat. Thank you very much, man. Find it endearing how Farnese is always happy when Guts validates her. Well, yeah, man. She's got her own little crush. I don't think it's any secret that Farnese has a huge crush on Guts. And it's the only thing keeping my man Roderick from Farnese's heart. You know what I mean? I'm always shipping Farnese and Roderick because Roderick is such a bro, man. He's such a good dude. I love Roderick so much. But, it's just hard, man. When you're like the most badass man in the entire manga, and the only person more badass than Roderick happens to be Guts. And that's just happens to be who he's in a traveling party with. It's like Roderick's got the muscle, he's got the skill, he's got the money, he's got the status, he's got the good looks, he's got the charisma, he's got everything that you want. But Guts is just Guts. And it's just like, how do you compete with that, man? How do you compete with that? You just can't. So I get it, man. I get it. Reminds me of my youth, man. I used to hang out with this kid, and he was like 6'1". He was like super attractive and good hair, good looks. And then there's just me, this like weird little ginger man, right next to him. And just like, they all just, you just can't, they all just gravitate towards one person, man. Got a super chat from Jason. Thank you very much, man. Do appreciate it. Thank you for supporting the channel. What are the things that you don't like that Berserk did? So the things that I didn't like, if I could try to just like list them real quick. I didn't like Isidro's introduction. Like I said, when Isidro was first brought into the manga, I didn't like the idea of having a little kid following Guts around. I was okay with Rickert because Rickert felt like he kind of fit in with the Band of the Hawk very well, and he didn't kind of like take over or anything. He was just kind of there. He was just part of the group. But Isidro was kind of like, oh, I'm like the scoundrel and I steal from people, and he's like mischievous, and I didn't like a lot of the humor they were doing with Isidro, especially early on. And so a lot of the early scenes with Isidro really bugged me, and when that character was introduced, I really didn't like him for a while. Like it took me a while to really warm up to Isidro. I always liked Isidro for what he means to Guts. He puts Guts into more of a parental figure role. He gives Guts somebody to train. He can act as a parallel to Guts as a child, not having anybody care about him with Gambino that was abusive, to Guts actually caring about Isidro. So Isidro means a lot for Guts' character. And that's why I liked Isidro being there, is because of what he meant for Guts. But Isidro as a character himself, I didn't like for a long time. I kind of started to like him probably like in Fantasia. Like that's how long it took me to like him. And then they did the whole chapter where he's like giving all the witches wedgies, and then I didn't like him again. No, he's fine. I think this is the best thing they've ever done with him, though, honestly. Giving him this little arc of losing Isma and seeing Guts be broken and like what that's going to do to him. So this is the best moment for Isidro. I also did not like the pirates. When they were doing the pirates in Berserk, I really, really hated them. I know that the point of those characters were to be annoying, but they were just so annoying that I just could not stand them. I hated him. Bonebeard and his whole group. Like I hated the whole pirate segment. I hated it. I think the wild segment does go a little bit too far. I'm not somebody that thinks that, Berserk is like too filled with explicit things. You know what I mean? Like I think most of it makes sense in context of the story. But I do think during the wild segment, I think there are some moments where it just gets it's a little bit too edgy. Like it's a little bit too much, just a little bit. I think it goes a little bit too overboard. Let's see what else. I also think that we should have had at least one casualty on Griffith's side by now, and I think it should have been Grunbeld. I think that when they attacked Flora's mansion, I think it would have been a better introduction to the Berserker armor and a better sacrifice for Flora, because Flora allowed herself to be burned up so that she could, create that wall of fire to help everybody escape. Well, I think it would have worked better as a sacrifice if Flora, if that had killed Grunbeld, right? or at least give us some kind of I feel like, you know, it's been so long since there's been a character death that, like, I feel like there should be one. Like, you know, there should be a major character death on one of the sides. And I always thought, like, in that moment, Grunbeld should have died. Like, I always felt like, just like, why'd they keep Grunbeld? They have not done a single thing with Grunbeld since then. So, like, what's the point of having him still be alive? You know what I mean? I feel like they should have killed him there. So those are just a couple of things. Throughout the story that I didn't like. So I don't have a lot. I think Berserk is pretty much perfect, but those are a few things that did bother me along the way. And let's see. Then we got a super chat. Once again from Rude Digitized. Thank you very much, man. Sorry about that. Okay, what's your favorite Berserk unpopular opinion? So actually, I think those were kind of it, man. To be honest, like, if I have another unpopular opinion, that's not just like a dislike. Unpopular opinion. Well, I mean, I do think that we should have a character death. Like, I think that we should. I think that it's been a while, and I think that it would impact the group significantly. And I think that, you know, the characters have been a little bit too safe. You know, I think that there should be a character death, man. I always thought it was going to be Farnese. Again, not that I don't want Farnese to die. I just think that her death would be the most impactful overall. But yeah, maybe that's an unpopular opinion I have. I don't know. I think that Berserk is ultimately a love story. I don't know if that's an unpopular opinion. You know, I think that the connection between Guts and Casca and what they mean for each other, and you know, Guts' whole journey and his change and his shift as a person, from going from a man seeking vengeance, destroying himself, to a man wanting to protect Casca and wanting the best for her. You know, I think there's a lot of precedence for me to say that I think Berserk is primarily like a love story, even though it's not about them like together. You know, it's about what they mean to each other and how far he's willing to go for her, you know? So I don't think it's a revenge story. I don't think it's an action story. I think it's a love story, personally. So I don't know, man. I don't know. But thank you everybody for the support, though. I really appreciate it, you guys. So this moment was a little strange, right? So we have Puck, seemingly not remembering Rickert, and there's like multiple different ways that you can interpret this. I interpreted it first as like a meta joke, because, you know, there's been fourth wall breaks in the story, particularly when it comes to Puck. You know, he's mentioned the audience a few times, and he's done things where he's kind of like talked directly to the reader. So he has this kind of fourth wall breaking ability. And so, like, I thought at first it was a joke, because how long has it been since Rickert and Puck were together in the story? In real time, in our time, it's been like over 20 years. So it's like, you know, I thought he might have not remembered him because it's been 20 years since he's seen him. You know what I mean? As a joke, like in our time. But other ways you can interpret it is that, you know, Puck just has a really shitty memory. And this has been brought up a few times. You know, there's been things that he forgot about Elfhelm, or things that he got wrong, or things that he mistook, you know. So you could just say that Puck generally has a really bad memory. We also don't really know exactly how long it's been. I mean, you get the impression that it's been a couple of years, but, you know, there's no like exact date. There's no exact time frame, so it's a little bit hard to tell. Or you could also say that Puck is a little bit upset with Rickert because they are being captive, and Rickert is with the Bakiraka and the Kushan, and, you know, they're captive, but Rickert isn't. So maybe he's a little bit salty, you know? Maybe he's looking at him like, because this panel, the one where he looks like right at him, it seems like he's acknowledging Rickert, and then in the next panel when he's on Isidro's shoulder, then he looks away with the question mark. So the acknowledgement makes me think that he does remember him, but maybe he just doesn't want to admit it. Maybe he's just like, nah, screw you. So I don't know. It could be any of those, I guess. But then Rickert asked the question that I was waiting for him to ask for so long, which is, where is Casca? Because he knows that Guts left with Casca and Puck when they left Godot's cave. And she's not here. So what happened? And, Puck doesn't answer, but Rickert immediately knows. He knows that it has something to do with Griffith. And it's all leading back to Griffith. He was the one that rejected Griffith's offer. He slapped him in the face. He told him, no, I will not. Rickert, by the way, what a man Rickert is, where he literally states that he would rather take his chances living in a world that is overrun with monsters than live in luxury in a kingdom that was built on the graves of his friends. He's just like, fuck you, slaps him in the face and says no. Like, I would literally rather live in a world of monsters than live here comfortably, knowing that the only reason I'm here is because all of my friends are dead. Like, what a badass, right? Like, what a fucking man. Like, I just, like, I can't get over how much of a badass Rickert is, man, for doing that. It's not just the slap. It's what the slap means. It's like the disrespect. It's like, no, how could you ever think that I would be okay with this, right? How could you ever think that I would accept this offer? Like, this is ridiculous, And then he just walks out. And, it just, from that moment forward, I mean, Rickert was always a badass. But particularly from that moment forward, it's just like the best, man. The best of the best. So we get this nice little double page spread here. And we do get Zod in the chapter. By the way, Zod is in the background. I don't know if you guys noticed, but we do get a little bit of Zod in this chapter. Grunbelt's back there too. And they all are. Irvine. Locust. Irvine is not in the panel, I don't think. But yeah. Kushan are recruiting troops, stockpiling arms. We're going to war. I suspect you know with whom. The Falcon of Light and Falconia. Then he says he has the power to change the world down to its fundamental principles. Leads the band of the Falcon, suppressing the demons that run rampant outside the capital walls, ever expanding the borders of his city. And we saw that before. We saw how he was going out and he was killing the Jotun and the giants and stuff. And then like talking about building different establishments. Basically this global domination. Receive reports, let's see, that he's been spotted at the Kushan Empire's western borders. And do you know what that means? He fears that which lies beyond his reason. He fears that which lies beyond his reason, beyond the demonic. That is why Elf Island was wiped out. We are next. There is not a moment to lose. So basically, to me, this is leading us into our final arc, our final battle. Like, that's what we're going towards. But the strange thing is that we're going to have events going on both here and in Falconia. And so I'm wondering how they're going to tie the two together, because obviously these two places are not close to each other whatsoever. We have Casca in Falconia and whoever is still there. And then we have, them coming here to wipe out, this whole like Kushan secret fortress or whatever. So somehow we got to merge these two together, and they might be able to do that really easily because you have like the spirit tree branches or whatever. So it's like, you could find a way to like just go from one to the other, I suppose. But I don't know, man. And then you got Rickert. We move to attack the Falcon of Light, and this expression could mean a lot of things as well. I think it's just a matter of like, no matter what he does, like he can't escape. Like it's always going to come back to Griffith. Like he knows. Like, it's inevitable, right? He was in Falconia. He was face to face with him, slapped him in his fucking face, walked out. But it doesn't matter because eventually it's all going to come back together. So it's building up, man. It's building up. I think we are going to have our massive battle here. Maybe it'll be twofolds. Maybe maybe we'll have like our final battle here in the Kushan secret fortress. Excuse me. And then after that, we'll move to Falconia for like an epilogue. Maybe most of the casualties will happen during this battle. And then the only people going to Falconia will be like Guts and whoever else, There was also talk at one point about Guts being separated from his friends. So maybe that will also be a thing. Maybe Guts will find his way to Falconia while everyone else is fighting here. Maybe Guts will go to get Casca by himself, or Guts and Skull Knight. I don't know. Where is Skull Knight, by the way? That's always the question. Where is Skull Knight? So, yeah. So, overall, I think there's a lot of good moving pieces here. I think there's a lot of good stuff in this chapter. I think we got our build-up. We got our setup to the war and why it's inevitable. I think it makes sense as to why it's happening. I think that there's good character development going on here with Rickert. I think that there's good stuff happening with Schierke being trapped in the astral realm. I think there's good stuff happening with Daiba thinking that he can kind of like, maneuver something out of all these characters and their magic. And we have Guts awake once again. So he's back to his conscious state. What that means moving forward, I don't know. But like I said earlier, wouldn't it be so funny if Chitch just showed up in this cell, man? If we just had like a little flower sprout and then Chitch was there, kind of bookending those two moments. Like we got our little flashback before Elfhelm, and then we have Chitch return after Elfhelm leading into the final arc. That would be crazy. I don't know if they're going to do that, but that would be interesting. So yeah. So what do you guys think, man? So that's kind of like a recap of the chapter in itself. Also, we have our witchy girlfriend Morda here as well, which is nice to see. Where is she? She's somewhere. Look at that. What a woman, man. What a woman. Anyways. So what do you guys think, man? So where do you think it's going to go from here? Are we going to shift back and forth? Are we going to go to Falconia and see what's up with Casca before we come back here? Or do you think it'll stay here? And how long until the war happens? I mean, I honestly think that they're going to get through this as quickly as they can. You know what I mean? Like, I don't think they're going to mess around. I think since we don't have Miura writing the story anymore, I really do think that it is going to barrel towards its finale. Now, there's a lot of stuff that's going to happen or a lot of stuff that needs to happen, but I don't think they're going to waste any time. Like, I really do think that, in story, in universe, I think we got about maybe 3 or 4 more chapters before this fight starts, if that. So I don't know, man. And then the big questions are always still out there. It's always, where's the God Hand? What's going to happen in Falconia? What's the sacrifice going to be? And then, is Guts going to be able to take control of the Berserker armor, which he doesn't have on anymore, by the way. They took it off of him. So he'll have to find where that is and put it back on if he needs it. Sundown sends in a super chat. Thank you very much, man. Do appreciate it. Thank you very much. What I think is going to happen, they will find a way to bring all the astral beings with Guts versus Griffith and the God Hand, like Avengers Endgame. Well, that's what I'm saying. Like, you have like all those characters there, right? So they were asking earlier, how are they going to defeat the apostles? And once again, like, apostles are extremely powerful, but they still are flesh and blood. And they still are susceptible to weapons. And, you have like an entire team of magical characters. You've got Farnese and Gedfring and Daiba and Morda and all the other witches. Whether Schierke wakes up or not, who knows? So you have like all of these magical characters all here that can provide barriers and force fields and defense. This is basically Dungeons and Dragons. Do you guys play D&D? Do you guys play D&D? This is basically D&D. Okay? So you have your magical character. They usually stay in the back. They provide backup. They throw a magic missile, or they do something from the background. Then you have your barbarian up front. You have your fighter up front. Then you got your bard doing some distraction thing somewhere. It's just like, this is Dungeons and Dragons right here. All right. So if you ever play D&D, that's what we're doing here. That's right. There's never a character that's too powerful if you have a good D&D team with you, right? Unless you're all like level 1 and they're level 50. So that's not going to be good, but but that's basically what it is. So yeah, I think that could happen. And, they've shown different ways for characters to travel long distances, whether it's like the paths of the world tree or whatever. So we could easily go from a fight here to shifting over into a fight in Falconia. So it's very, very possible. Do you think the Skull Knight might be the true villain in the end, like killing the God Hand and Guts fights him? I thought if there was ever a moment for Guts to fight Skull Knight, it would have been on Elfhelm, because in my mind, Skull Knight, well, I mean, most of the characters in Berserk, but let's just say Skull Knight, he's not good or bad. He's just Skull Knight. His goal is to destroy the God Hand, and that's all he cares about, right? And the way I look at it, Skull Knight, is the same way I look at Zod, where it's like, it's a cautionary tale for Guts. It's an idea of like what could happen to him, because Skull Knight has lost his humanity. He's not a person anymore. That's why he talks so robotically. That's why he talks in a way that's very matter of fact, or he talks in these obscure kind of like prolific sort of ways, is that he can't communicate like a normal person, right? Like he's lost his humanity, and everything he does and everything that he tries to do is for the purpose of that vengeance. Like that's all he is, right? He's incapable of experiencing life in any other way that's not directly related to his mission, to what he wanted to do, to what his strongest desire was when he was killed, which is to kill the God Hand, right? So that's his prime directive. So the only way that Skull Knight and Guts would fight is if that conflicted, if Guts got in his way of him going to achieve his goal, right? And the only way I thought that would ever happen is if they definitively said in the manga that the only way to kill Griffith is to kill him when he's in the Moonlight Boy form. And so if that were the case, I mean, the Moonlight Boy is essentially Guts and Casca's child. So if Guts wanted to protect the child in order to make sure the child lives, and Skull Knight wanted to kill the child because it would be the only way to kill Griffith, that to me is the only way I can like logically make it make sense in my mind as to why Guts and Skull Knight would come to blows, like why they would come to fight. And I felt like if that was going to happen, it was going to happen on Elfhelm because the Moonlight Boy was there for so long. And I felt like Skull Knight might have known, you know, all along, right? So I don't know. That didn't happen, so they'd have to come up with a way for it to happen past that. So I don't know. I think we're going to go back to see what Casca is up to. That would be cool. I mean, in our real time, it's been almost a year since that chapter, so it would be nice to see what Casca is up to. But in the story, it's only been about 4 or 5 chapters, so. I believe the God Hand is going to betray Griffith, causing his demise. Yeah, there's a lot of theories like that where either, you know, the God Hand is using Griffith for their own, or Void, you know, in particular, is using him for his own plan, or if Griffith is going to betray the God Hand. I think that, you know, all these characters, I think it's all dependent on who they were when they transformed or when they kind of ascended to these levels. So it's like, what do they want? Like, you look at Griffith and it's like, you know, he wants to continue to rise higher. He wants to continue to have as much power and authority as he can. He wants to be idolized. He wants his own kingdom, but now on a greater level. So now a kingdom isn't enough. Now it's like world domination. And if world domination happens, then what's the next step after that? Well, that's not enough. Now I need to go beyond that. So it's like, is there ever an end game? Is there ever an end point for somebody like Griffith? You know? And then you got to think like, well, what would the end point be for Void? Like, what does Void want? Like, who was he before he transformed? You know, we don't really know. We have ideas, but we don't really know. So it's like, well, what does he really want to accomplish? You know, and like, just, you know, ascending into a new form isn't going to change that aspect of them, right? So, yeah. I think that Griffith is probably going to be returned to his old body. Yeah, I think that would be interesting. You know, I think it would be an interesting way to end his character if they could somehow find a way to depower him and he kind of went back to that crippled state that he was in, you know, in the Golden Age. And, you know, I understand, like I understand wanting to see Griffith die. Like, I do too, you know? But I also think it would be really interesting if he was just left like a crippled husk of his former self that is incapable of doing anything, and he has to live out the rest of his, you know, 50 years of life just completely broken and withered and not able to walk and not able to use a sword and not able to do anything, and just like have him suffer for years and years before he dies, you know? The whore princess of the uterine sea, not exactly robotic, Ryan. Yeah, but it's very matter of fact. He's not fucking around. That's what she is. The whore princess of the uterine sea. There's nothing more to be said. Skull Knight's going to get a flashback arc, and we'll find out what really happened 1,000 years ago. I don't think it would be an arc. I don't think that they have the time for it. You know what I mean? I think we are barreling towards the end of the story. I think if anything, maybe it'll be a chapter. It'll be like an explanation, you know, with somebody talking over it, like somebody explaining what happened, or we'll see more bits and pieces like we saw with the Berserker armor flashback. But I don't think they would do an entire arc on it, because, you know, that would take, you know, that would be like, you know, several volumes in itself to tell that story, you know. But if it's like a couple of chapters, I could see them doing that. Let's see. I can see that happening. The idea of evil was a heart, and that may be difficult for Studio Gaga to draw emotionally. Very on the nose with how Miura died. They might find that to be disrespect. Interesting. Interesting. I haven't heard anybody say that before. Yeah, that might be actually be difficult for them, like on an emotional level. But I also feel like, well, if you are staying true to Miura's story, I mean, that was kind of the concept for it. That was like the visualization that he drew for it. It was like this heart that was like pumping, you know, all of these thoughts, desires, dreams, you know, through itself, you know. It was a really cool visual. I like the visual a lot, actually. And it could mean so many things, you know, because we saw the heart, you know, being this very, very important thing. And then you saw the heart with the thorns around it in Kafka's Dreamscape. And, you know, there's a lot of like similarities and parallels there that are interesting. But yeah. It might be rough. I don't know if they'll really get into like nitty gritty detail with the idea of evil and stuff. I don't know, man. It depends, because the chapter itself was omitted at this point, you know. So maybe it's not as important as we think it is. You know, I don't know. Guts was supposed to be the Lisan Agaib. Lisan Agaib. Yeah. Well, it seems like Griffith is the Lisan Agaib, the prophet that causes holy war. Yeah, that's definitely Griffith. What do you think Zod will do? I think Zod will be a badass, as he always is. And that's what he will continue to do forever. No, I think there's a chance that Zod will turn against Griffith in some way, but I think he has to be defeated by Guts first, you know. I think that there's a progression of the Guts versus Zod battles, you know, because we saw when they first met, you know, Zod kicked Guts' ass, and then in their second fight on the Hill of Sword, it was pretty even for a while until Zod transformed. But now for fight number 3, I think Guts is going to take the win. I'd rather Casca get some closure in being able to, in being able to kill him, and then he turns and he dies out in a feeble shell of a human. Yeah, I'd be down for that. You know what I mean? I think that Casca has every right to kill Griffith just the same as Guts does, so I'd be down for that. Let's see. I feel like Griffith should have a fate worse than death. Yeah, and that's what I'm saying. Like, if there was a way to kind of depower his character or take him back to that like crippled state that he was in the Golden Age, I mean, I think it would be really poetic for Guts to just kind of walk away from him. Not in like a, oh, I'm not going to kill you because I'm better than you kind of way, but in a parallel to the, you know, you're just a stone on my path. Like, you know how Griffith said to Genin that, like, you know, you meant nothing to me. You're just a stone on my path. I just needed to walk over you to get to where I needed to go. It would be pretty savage if Guts was able to say something similar to Griffith and then just walk away from him, you know, while leaving Griffith to rot and decay and die and, you know, in his hopeless, you know, crippled state. Yeah, Griffith cared about Guts. That's why he said he came back to see if he felt anything after Guts in the cliff. Yeah, I agree. Yeah, absolutely. Like, a lot of people forget, like, you can't sacrifice something you don't care about. Like, the reason the sacrifice works is because Griffith did care about the Band of the Hawk. Like, you have to give up something that tethers you to your humanity. And that's also why Griffith went to see Guts right after, when he got incarnated, to see if he felt anything. He went to the Hill of Swords to see Guts, to see if he still felt the same way. And according to Griffith, he was cut off from it. He didn't feel the way that he felt before. He's like, all right, I'm good, I'm free. It wasn't until the Moonlight Boy's influence, when Casca was in trouble, when he felt the Moonlight Boy inside of him like care about Casca, and he's like, oh shit. He's like, oh, maybe something is wrong. And then that's when he left. So, Griffith's an evil bastard. Like, listen, Griffith's a piece of shit and he deserves to die, okay? But you got to remember that the only reason the sacrifice worked is because Griffith did care about the Band of the Hawk. He did care about them. But that's the whole point of the sacrifice, is that you sacrifice someone you love or somebody you care about for your power, for greater power, right? So yeah, he absolutely did care about Guts. Anonymous Bastard, thank you very much, man. Sends in a super chat. Appreciate it. I always saw Griffith and the God Hand's ambition sacrificing humanity, particularly those in Falconia, in order to physically manifest the idea of evil. Yeah, I mean, I don't know what would happen after that. Like, I'm not saying you're wrong, but I don't know, like, what would... I can only think of two things, and they're complete opposites of, like, what the ultimate sacrifice would be, right? So, if you think about, like, the idea of evil exists because humanity kind of willed it into existence because they need a reason for their suffering, right? That's kind of how it was explained. It's like, we live in this world that all these horrible things happen. People get diseases and they die, murder, assaults, like all these horrible things happen. It's like, why do these things happen? Why do all of these horrible things in the world happen to people, right? And so humanity on like a global scale all has that feeling. Like, why do these horrible things happen, right? So in our collective consciousness, we created this idea of evil. These bad things happen because of evil. Like, evil is out there. Evil is out to get us, right? So it's like the idea of evil was created because people need it to exist in order to explain why bad things happen, right? So the ultimate goal of the God Hand, or whatever it is, I can imagine is only one of two things, right? And they're complete opposite things. Reason number one would be to perpetuate the idea of evil and keep it going forever. Like, we always need to believe in evil in order to have an explanation as to why these horrible things happen. So evil has to exist to give us some kind of rationale, right? So could it be that all of these, the God Hand in this 1,000-year cycle, continues this perpetual cycle to kind of build up humanity, bring them together, and then tear them apart, just so that we keep that idea of evil in our mind, right? So like Geyser's kingdom, he was able to unite all of the nations and all of these factions together. People lived in peace for a while. Then the kingdom was destroyed. People separated. And over this 1,000-year time, people believed in this kind of evil and that kind of evil. And they created the Holy See religion and all that stuff. And it all built towards uniting everybody together again, but now under Falconia. So is Falconia destined to be destroyed the same way that King Geyser's kingdom was, so that people have this kind of like hope, this hope in a Messiah, this hope in good, and then it's torn apart, and then people build up again over the next 1,000 years. So idea number one is that the idea of evil's basically intent is to keep itself going forever, kind of keep the heart pumping forever, right? So you got to basically build people up and then break them down. You got to do that over and over again to keep it in the consciousness. So that could be idea number one. Idea number two is maybe it's trying to fulfill humanity's desire to get rid of the idea of evil, right? People no longer want evil. But the only way that we can get rid of evil is if we get rid of all of humanity. So maybe idea number two is that the mass sacrifice in Falconia, or the world, is to bring everybody together and create this mass sacrifice that kills everybody, that wipes out, like, mass extinction. And then there's no more idea of evil. because there's no people to have that idea, right? So I don't know. That's what I think. I think it could be one of those two things. They're complete opposites. They're complete polar opposites, but I feel like one of those two is correct. I don't know. Wolf Status, thank you very much for Super Chat, man. Thank you for supporting the channel. I do appreciate it, my friend. Do you believe in the idea of good? So, yeah, so this gets brought up sometimes where people think, like, well, if there's an idea of evil, then there has to be a polar opposite idea of good. But, like, I don't particularly think so. And the reason why, for me, for my opinion, and these are all just my opinion, by the way. I don't have any kind of inside knowledge. Like, I'm not an expert, okay? I'm not an expert. I'm just giving you guys my opinion, all right? None of this has anything to do with anything behind the scenes or what Miura has said or anything like that. This is just my opinions, all right? That's it. That's all it is. The reason I don't think that there's an idea of good is because I don't think there's a strong enough desire for it, because I don't think people question the reason behind good things as much as they question the reason behind bad things. I think when things are going well, you're mostly kind of oblivious to it. Like, you're not really thinking too deeply into it. Like, even in day-to-day life, I don't think that most people have as much of a sense of gratitude as they have a sense of, like, negativity. You know what I mean? Like, I think when good things are happening, like, hey, like, oh, I'm happy today, or, you're laughing, or you have a good meal or something like that, you're not really thinking, what is the reason why I'm so happy? Like, what is the reason why things are good? I don't think you think about it the same way. I think that the idea of evil works based upon desire, and I think people desire a reason to explain why bad things are happening to them more than they need a reason to explain good things, if that makes sense. So to me, I don't think that there's like a strong enough collective desire in order to create an idea of good. I don't think people think about it the same way. I don't think that they need an answer the same way, and I think that's true even to this day. Like, when someone in your family gets sick, or you something, you lose your job, or, you're in a bad breakup, or something happened. Like, you're always like, why did this happen? Like, I need a reason to explain the bad things that are happening. But when things are going well, you don't really question them. You don't really think about it. You just kind of, it's not really until things go bad that you reflect back and think about, wow, things were actually good then. But in the moment when good things are happening, you don't really focus on it as much, you don't really focus on it as much. So that's my reasoning. But again, it's just my opinion. Like, I don't really know. We could see one in the manga. I don't know. But that's just my opinion as to why it doesn't exist. So that's what I'm going with for now, until we see something in the manga that, changes that. Let's see. The art is so much better this time around. I know it won't be as it once was, obviously, but I really do appreciate that Mori and Studio Gaga are doing. Yeah, and actually, that's the first comment this whole stream that's talked about that. I think that the artwork continuously gets better. I said this from the very beginning, like when they first came out with the new chapters and stuff, where Studio Gaga took over, everyone was complaining about the artwork. And it's like, I mean, on one level, you just have to understand that Miura was a very specific person when it came to his artwork. Like, he put his heart and soul into this manga, and like, it doesn't matter how close you get to mimicking his art, nobody on planet Earth or anywhere else or in any other dimension is gonna be able to mimic his artwork 100%. It's just not going to happen. It's literally impossible. So my thing is, just don't hate the manga for what it can't be. Like, we can criticize like the storytelling and the dialogue or whatever you want to criticize about the story, but when it comes to the artwork, like, if your criticism is it's not Miura, it's never going to be Miura. Ever. No matter how good they get, it will never be Miura. So I think that's not a worthy criticism at this point. But I do think that chapter by chapter, they are getting so much better. I think that every chapter gets better. And that's also why, you know, I'm okay with waiting a long time for chapters. First of all, I'm just used to it. You know, it's Berserk. But if it takes them a while to make it because they're making the art good, then let them cook. You know what I mean? Ugh. Sorry. I'm rolling around everywhere. Keep rolling, rolling, rolling. Yeah, it's true. If there's an idea of good, it's extremely weak. Yeah, that's just what I'm saying. I just don't think people think about it the same way. Excuse me. Humans are too ungrateful. Yeah, I think it's by design. You know what I mean? I think that, I think inherently, like a lot of us, people are mostly selfish. People give in to their darker tendencies. I think that's one of the points that the story tries to make, is that most people will give in to their darker tendencies, you know? Not all. And I think it also shows that in order to overcome your darker tendencies, it takes a lot of strength, it takes a lot of willpower, and it takes choice. And a lot of people want to absolve themselves of that choice and just say, oh, I didn't have any choice. I had to do it. You didn't have to. You just had to be a little bit stronger. And we see that strength through Guts, you know? He fails sometimes, right? As we all do. And it's a dark fantasy story, so his failures are very exaggerated compared to ours, hopefully. But, you know, it shows how you can fall and stumble and still move forward. Love the artwork, but I will say the facial features are very soft compared to the past. Yeah, I mean, I do agree, but I think they're getting better over time. And like, I'll never expect it to look like Miura's artwork. Miura is one person with a signature style that no one's going to be able to replicate. And that's just the way that it is, man. Just want to say that I don't mind if we get a chapter every 3 to 4 months if it's the same quality as 376. Yeah, same here, man. Same here. I mean, I'm used to getting only like 4 chapters a year, so it's fine. Honestly, the artwork is different, but it's not bad at all. True. Pretty much everyone forgets Griffith still hasn't succeeded in his goal. He still isn't king. That's why he's using Princess Charlotte and keeping the pontiff alive. Yeah, he's still... Well, we were supposed to have some kind of ceremony for it, right? But it never happened. He was supposed to marry Charlotte, and we are supposed to have like a big ceremony for it, but it just... it never happened, so... Yeah, if you want to be technical, yeah. So maybe this fight's going to happen first, and then Griffith's going to win, and then he's going to go celebrate his victory back in Falconia, where they finally crown him king, and then the sacrifice happens. Really took Miura's artwork for granted. Well, hey, that literally goes in line with what I was saying about there not being an idea of good, because when things are good, you don't question them, right? You don't need a reason why. You just enjoy it. It's not until it's gone that you're like, oh shit, I missed that. So. Don't have any complaints. I think the chapters have been fine, and the art also. Yeah. Miura's a genius. Geniuses are not supposed to be easy to replace. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, true. I agree. The art in this chapter was incredible. Yeah, like I said, I think it's getting better and better every single chapter. I really do. Seki Jokes, thank you very much for your super chat. Appreciate it, man. Thank you for supporting the channel. He says, what if Guts' Bail moment is being offered the power to kill Griffith after he's weakened from trying to betray the God Hand, Void being the brains? Wait, if Guts' Bail moment is offered the power to kill Griffith after he's weakened... I don't know, man, because I just don't think that that's... I don't think that would fall in line into, like, how we've seen that work before. Like, You know, if he's already weakened, he wouldn't need the help. Like, he wouldn't need the help and he wouldn't need the sacrifice. And I don't think that he would... I don't think that he would do it, you know? I've never thought that, you know what I mean? Like, there's a lot of theories and speculations about Guts and the Bailet and stuff, but I think it's all a misdirect. I think the Bailet's going to be used for... In my personal opinion, I think it's going to be forged into the Dragon Slayer for the next Bailet sword. That's just my personal opinion. But I think it's going to be utilized for something different, right? I think it's going to be for a different purpose, right? Maybe that purpose is to try to, like, enter into, that astral realm or something like that. But I don't know. But Guts wouldn't do it regardless. I don't care what he was offered. Like, after what he's went through, after what he's experienced, after watching all of his friends die in the most horrific way possible, after doing everything that he did for Casca, I just refuse to believe there's ever a scenario in which he would actually do it. And again, like, I just don't think it would help anything, Like, I don't think that, like, it just wouldn't. I just don't think it would matter, in the grand scheme of things, personally. But I think that's the testament to it. Like, I think that's the point of the story, is to show you everybody in their weakest moment, and how it's a lot easier to kind of just accept and embrace that darkness rather than struggling and rather than fighting against it. I think every single apostle is basically just a representation of a human being, of a person that reached their lowest point in life and couldn't deal with it, couldn't deal with the pain and couldn't think of a way to escape it and couldn't think of a way to rise up. And so they were willing to sacrifice somebody that they loved in order for their lives to be better, in order for them to ascend, in order for them to be stronger. They weren't capable of doing it for themselves. They relied on getting that power from somebody else because they gave up somebody that was close to them. And I think a lot of the purpose of the story is to put Guts through the most horrible situations possible and watch him time and time again continue to move forward. So I don't think there's any scenario. I don't think there's any outcome. I don't think there's any, like, sacrifice someone and Griffith will die. I don't think there's any scenario whatsoever that you would ever be able to put Guts in where he would actually do it, no matter what the cost. So, I don't know. That's what I think. Oh shit, yeah, Griffith isn't king yet? Yeah, I know, right? Technically, no. Technically, he's not been crowned. At least not that we've seen. Honestly, I like the artwork. I was expecting it to be much worse after Miura. I like it too. I mean, I think it's fine. Like, again, I'm not going to compare it to based upon what Miura's art looked like, because I don't believe that anybody could ever possibly replicate him. You know what I mean? Like, it's just not going to happen. He's a very, like, specific individual that put his heart and soul into every stroke of the brush, every movement of the pen. And you can't recapture that. You can't. It's just not going to work. It's like that with all art, like all artists. Not just drawing things, but, like, you ever have, like, a singer replaced in a band? It's like they can sing all the same notes, they can sing the same songs, sing the same lyrics, but it's not the same, right? It's not. It'll never be the same, right? And you can't hate it for what it's not capable of being, right? When will there be another chapter? I don't know, man. Not next month, as far as I know. I could see Void and Griffith plotting against each other due to ego. Yeah, that would be interesting. I mean, I would be up for something like that in the story. Hope Daiba won't do anything bad. Yeah, I don't know. I think he just wants to utilize them for the fight itself. I don't think he's. I don't know. He might. He's a crafty old bastard. So who knows? The Dragon Slayer of actuality. Yeah. Martin Navarez, thank you very much, man. Sends a super chat. Appreciate supporting the channel, man. I know that Mori and Studio Gaga will pace themselves to finish strong, and I think they should. I think they should take as much time as they need. It's not like it's any different, right? Like, we're pretty much used to getting like 3 Berserk chapters a year, so it's pretty much on pace. The only thing that makes it difficult is because it takes so long for chapters to come out. By the time they do come out, it feels like we've been doing the same thing for a long time for some people. Like, some people are like, man, Guts has been so depressed for so long and they don't like it. But if you look at the chapters, it's been like 6 or 7 chapters. Like, it hasn't been that long in the story. It's just been a long time for us waiting for chapters. So it's like, when you go back and reread it all together, it's not going to feel that long. But I understand, waiting for chapters, it seems like it's a really long time. So I get it. I get it. You know what would be cool? You know what would be interesting, though, is if they actually do have like a bunch of chapters done and they're pacing it slow right now so that when it gets to the fight, like when it gets to the war, then it's like a chapter monthly. That would be interesting. If they were like, yeah, we were just pacing it so we could finish all these war chapters. And then when they get to it, they're just like, bam, month after month after month after month. Don't count on that. That probably will not happen, but would be interesting. Why does Guts keep the Bailet? Why not get rid of it? I think he kept it because it was a key to getting to the God Hand at one point, because he didn't really know how they worked until Flora told him. So he found the Bailet like in the beginning of the manga during the arc with the Count, and he knew that the Bailet somehow gives you access to the God Hand, but he didn't really know how it worked at the time. So he kept it with him because he just wanted to have something that he knew would help him, but he didn't know, how to utilize it, right? It wasn't until he talked to Flora where she kind of explained a little bit more of how it worked. But by that point, he'd been carrying the Bailet around for so long, and also Puck really grew attached to the Bailet, was like feeding it cheese and stuff. So you just figured like may as well hang on to it at that point. You know what I mean? Like why get rid of it now? So what if the Bailet turned Guts into a child like Dragon Ball GT? That'd be amazing. That'd be great. Dragon Ball GT isn't that bad. Like, it's bad, but it's not that bad. Guts will learn from Dwarf King and Daiba to fully master the Berserker armor through his own prana or inner chakra. That would be cool. I'd be down to see it. I think that's coming in the future, at least him mastering the armor, for sure. Guts using Bailets defeats the whole purpose of choice and free will. True. Idea of evil refers to the ancient Greek concept of the idea, so it would be more appropriate to view it as the purest form of evil, which would line up to what Puck said about the vortex. Interesting. Okay. The crowning ceremony will be the moment everyone puts the brand on their forehead and sacrifices themselves. I've thought about that too. Yeah, I think it might be. I think that's how the story is going to go. I think that we are going to have this fight. I think that Griffith will win. Our characters will still be alive, or, some of them might die. Griffith will win. Then he'll go back to Falconia, celebrate the victory, be crowned king, convince everybody to put the brand on their foreheads, because it's important. I keep telling people, it's important. There's a reason why it's all on their foreheads. And then the giant mass sacrifice of Falconia will happen. Void is the most mysterious character in Animanga. He is, I like that the God Hand is kept in the background a lot. Like, obviously, I want to see them more, because they're so cool, right? But I think it makes every time they show up that much more impactful when they're just kind of kept in the background for a long time, Can't stand Daiba. I don't mind Daiba too much. Berserk is a masterpiece in the same way that the Iliad, Moby Dick, and Othello. I would actually agree. Do you think Guts will become an apostle to kill Griffith and the God? No. Have you read about Cancel Mira Sensei projects called Amazon Doranki Prototype? No, I have not. I like Doranki. I thought that was a cool little manga. I kind of wish they would have... obviously, I'd rather them do Berserk, focus their efforts on that. But I was kind of down to see where Doranki was going to go. I was kind of interested to... It felt like a very fun, Stand By Me kind of story, like coming-of-age story in a fantasy world. I kind of liked it. Imagine being a 15-year-old day one reader of Berserk in 1989 and facing another 10-plus years of waiting in 2024. I always wonder about that. Like, I would love to talk to somebody that read Berserk when it first came out. Obviously they'd have to be Japanese. Like, I don't think it came out in America until the early 2000s, the manga. I don't think it was officially translated and released until 2004 or something like that. So, yeah, it would be cool to meet somebody that was a fan for this, last 35 years. Did you watch the fan animated Black Swordsman episode? Yeah, I did. I thought it was really good. I thought it was good. I left a comment on the video. I thought it was cool. I forget the name of the channel, but it was good. I liked it. If you think about it, in the Berserk manga, there were wars for 100 years. Now a new war is about to begin. That's realistic. Unfortunately, conflicts are part of human nature from the very beginning. Yeah, and that's why I think that part of it could be a way to just kind of perpetuate the idea of evil forever, like build people up under this big unifying city capital, this big unifying city, give people hope, and then destroy it all, tear it down, separate humanity, let 1,000 years go by of rumors and histories and suspicions and building up different monsters and stuff, in the consciousness of mankind, build it up for 1,000 years, bring everybody together, tear it down, repeat the cycle over and over. I think that could be really likely as to what is going on, Hashtag Ryan was right. Yes. Not until the Balet sword, until that happens. Well, I mean, you can always hashtag it if you want to, but yeah. Saw Guts as an apostle. It looked sick, but maybe you are right. He won't. Who knows? Yeah, I mean, I've talked about it throughout the stream. I think it just defeats the purpose of the entire story of struggling through and not giving in to your darker tendencies, because that's what everybody does. I think that's what every apostle has done thus far, and that's why we're following Guts as a protagonist, because we're seeing him put through struggles and trials and tribulations into the darkest traumas that you could possibly imagine, and yet he somehow continues to move forward without it, right? He somehow continues to stand up, even if it would be better for him to lay back and die, and he's seen all of that stuff happen. He wouldn't put anybody that he loves through that. There's nobody that he would sacrifice in his group, and it wouldn't help a thing anyways, because it still wouldn't be strong enough. Did it really eat cheese? I wonder if you could make an apostle lactose intolerant. Betchy, yeah, the Bela eats cheese. This is canon. It's canon. I don't know what kind of cheese. That would be interesting to know. Somebody should tweet at Koji Mori and ask him. I don't know what kind of cheese Betchy eats, but yeah, it's canon that he eats cheese. I don't think the max sacrifice happens like that, because what's a kingdom with its people? Because what's a kingdom without its people? Well, I mean, yeah, that's what I mean. Like, what is the overall goal here? Like, if we look at Void in Griffith's place like 1,000 years ago, that could be the ultimate outcome for it, right? It's to build everything up, create this massive chaos. Griffith becomes the first god hand of the next generation that kind of leads them to that next massive point. Who knows? Yeah. Puck and his interactions was the biggest eye catcher for me. Yeah, we talked about that a little bit earlier. We were wondering if, he truly didn't remember Rickert, or if it was like he didn't like that they were they're not prisoners, but they're kind of being forced to fight. So maybe he didn't like that Rickert was working with the Kushan. Or he could just be extremely forgettable, just not remember him, which is, I don't know. I don't really like that idea, but I guess, Puck has shown that he has like a little bit of a faulty memory in the past. There's evidence for it, so, Didn't Miura say that Void is really important for the ending? Yes, he did. He did say that in an interview. He didn't really explain what he meant by it. He just said, like, yeah, Void's important. Like, pay attention to that. Griffith has no reason to sacrifice anyone else. He's already in the god hand. What's next? Becoming a god. I mean, kind of, man. I mean, if you think about it, there's a quote where Guts says, that's what Griffith does. He's the hawk. He rises higher. I don't think there's any limit to how far Griffith wants to ascend. I think that that's just that's just in his DNA. That's just who he is as a person. If there is always a chance to rise higher, he's going to do it. And what that means, I don't know. Whether that means getting rid of the other god hand and being the only one, whether that means becoming a god, or whether that means just kind of falling in line to what the god hand does and becoming the first of the next generation to lead that generation of god hand to the next destruction. Like, I don't know, but I think that that's definitely what it's building towards. I think it's building towards a cataclysm. It's building towards, you're collecting all of humanity together. If you look at the Conviction arc, you see that when a bunch of people are all kind of contained in one area and they're all kind of thinking and feeling the same way, it manifests some kind of massive change in the world. Everybody in the Conviction arc was panicked and in pain, and they were all reaching for a savior. They all wanted somebody to save them, and it kind of helped that desire manifest into the egg of the perfect world that brought Griffith into the world. Like, they needed that collective desire, that collective feeling, everybody wanting a savior in order to bring that savior into the world. So if you look at that on an even larger scale in Falconia, well, if there's a collective desire for something, if there's that many people, like almost the entire world, worth of people all collective together and all desiring something, what that desire is, I don't know whether that desire is to see Griffith ascend to be a god. You know what I mean? Like, who knows, man? Like, I think that the next phase of that is coming. So I think that there will be a mass sacrifice of some sort. Although I think it's going to be like a self-sacrifice. I think there's a reason why we saw all those brands on people's foreheads, before in Geiserich's time. And I think that's going to mimic itself here. I think that we're going to see all of Griffith's followers put that brand on their forehead. I think it's going to be a sacrifice by choice. They're going to kind of buy into his rulings. He's the Lisan Agaib, right? For my Dune fans. I think it's going to lead into that, because I still think there's a reason for that. I know some people don't. I know some people think it's just an art style aesthetic choice, but I think there's a specific reason we saw the brands on everybody's foreheads. Also, their bodies are still there. We know that a sacrifice works because the bodies are devoured, they're eaten. So why are the bodies still there? I'm just saying. There's something to that. There's something to that. Puck will throw the Bayonet at Griffith, killing him instantly. Perhaps. Wild versus the Count. I think I would give the edge to Wild because I think he's more willing to get down and dirty in a fight. I think the Count is extremely powerful, but he's not like as much of a... He's not as much of like a maniac. You know what I mean? Like, I think Wild would just go for the throat. Sup, dude? Love your vids. Thank you, man. Amazon, supposed to be a Greek mythos time travel isekai story long before isekai genre became oversaturated. What? Are you excited for the Studio Eclipse fan animation of Berserk? Yeah, I like a lot of those, man. Like, I've always been a big fan of Studio Taka. They're kind of my guys. I like all the fan animations that people make. I watch all of them that I find, that I see. I'm always a big fan of it, man. I always think it's really cool. A lot of talented people, like I wouldn't even know where to begin with creating something like that. So, I'm always kind of like in awe of what people are able to create. You know what I mean? Can you eat an apostle? I don't see why not. They're made of meat. Just cook it and eat it, man. Only goat cheese. What does a Bayonet taste like? I don't know, man. I always imagine it being kind of like rubbery, like rough. Like kind of like a stress ball, but like with a lot of resistance. Like I don't imagine it would taste very good. Do you ever think the Count's daughter is ever coming back in the story to play a role? She promised to kill Guts herself. In her eyes, Guts was sort of a villain. I think it would be cool if there was like a cameo. I want to see Jill again. I'd like to see Jill come back, to be honest. She's like the biggest character I'd love to see again. I think it'd be cool if it was a cameo, but I don't think it's important to the story. I think the importance of it is that like perpetual cycle of revenge and violence. Like, because of Guts' journey of revenge, he in turn creates somebody else who is now bent on revenge. It's kind of like that never-ending cycle of hatred. I think that's kind of more of what it was meant to imply, but I'd like to see her again as far as like a cameo or something. Do you think that Guts will be a stand-in for Skull and someone else will fill in for Zod's position if it's a cycle ultimately? If that was the ultimate fate for Guts, then I think he's one of the two. I don't think that he would necessarily have like a parallel, like a Zod versus Skull Knight thing. I think Zod and Skull Knight in the story, they basically represent the two outcomes of what would happen to Guts if he gives in to his darkness completely and loses his humanity. He either becomes, like an apostle that fights forever with no ties to anyone or anything, or he becomes you know, he dies in the Berserker armor and becomes just a husk of his former self, losing his humanity and cares nothing about anything except revenge. And he's just incapable of having any kind of connection or, you know, attachment to anyone or anything. It's like those are the two cautionary tales. Those are the two outcomes if Guts fails, right? So it's one or the other. If Paul is Griffith, then who is Guts in Dune? I don't know. Who is Guts in Dune? That's a good question. Paul never really, like, fucked anybody over like that of his friends. You know, Paul's pretty good to his friends, so I don't know. I'm reading Dune Messiah right now, so maybe after I finish that book, I'll have a better answer. Anyways, guys, I do got to end the stream here in a moment. I'm probably going to go for I could probably go for like 10 more minutes. And then I'm going to have to wrap it up. Probably get that off of there, actually, since we have gone through the whole chapter now. If you guys got here late, if you go back, we did go through the whole chapter. Let's see. You're the man, Ryan. Well, thank you. I am a man. I mean, last time I checked. But thank you. Demon Horse replaces Femto. That'd be great. Well, the Demon Horse is dead. I was gonna say let's see it again, but yeah, we killed it. It's gone. It's not coming back. Mac Daddy Snuggle sends in a super chat. Thank you very much, man. Appreciate it. What if Void is actually the main god hand that's always existed, who cyclically absorbs the other members during the large-scale sacrifice events? I mean, that could be possible. I think that I think there's clues, right, in the story of Void being, the sage that Skull Knight had, that King Geyserk had, that was sent to the torture chamber, you know, and then cried out to the heavens or whatever, and then managed to ascend or something. Whatever the story the Mosgus says, I can't remember exactly, but there's like a whole story that he tells about the sage that was imprisoned, and we know that he was kind of connected to Skull Knight in some way. So if he's older than that, I would find that to be surprising. But we might have it where Void is just as ambitious as Griffith is, and it's just, you know, he's just compelled to have this power and authority. And there might be confliction there. Like Void might have something more going on than we even know about that goes far beyond the story that we're reading. Like, we're reading the story of Guts and Griffith, but there's a whole other story out there that we don't even know about with Void. And, you know, he could be looking to maintain his place no matter what, or to officially come back into the world himself. Like, you know, we don't really know where the God Hand is right now. At first, it seemed like, okay, the God Hand came into the world when, you know, the blast of the Astral world happened. But now, you know, since that moment, it seems more like, well, you know, not all the layers of the Astral world are here in the physical. Like, you know, it's overlapping, but there's still deeper levels, you know, and then we have like the abyss and stuff in the deepest levels. So that's not here, you know, so there's still levels of the Astral world that like aren't here. So where is the God Hand? That is the main question. That is, I think, like one of the number one questions of the story right now is like, where is the God Hand? You know? Guts is Gurney. I don't know, man, because Paul likes Gurney. You know, they teamed back up at the end. Fade could be Guts, but I'm almost done with Dune Messiah. No, Fade's too much of a crazy bastard, man. Fade would be like, no, like the Fade would be one of Ganishka's men, because like the Baron would be Ganishka, I feel like. Yeah, I'm reading Dune Messiah right now. It's pretty crazy. It's pretty good. It's pretty good. Branson's in a super chat. Thank you very much, my friend. I do appreciate it. Happy 376 stream. Thank you very much, man. I do appreciate it. Thank you for the support, my friend. Let's see. Add Guts to Fortnite. Yeah, why not? Why not? You know it'll happen someday. You know, it'll happen someday. Been really disappointed by no Skull Knight during the destruction of the island. I know. Where is he? Where is Skull Knight? That's the second biggest question beyond where is the God Hand. I think Guts' whole existence till now is to defy causality. Remember, he was born from a hanged corpse. Yeah, I absolutely agree with you. Like, he's somebody that, for all intents and purposes, would be or should be better off dead, but he continues to struggle and continues to survive. It's the most compelling part of his character is, you know, the fact that he should be dead, but he refuses, you know? He continues to fight no matter what, and I think that's inspiring in many ways. Subject Zero sends in a super chat. Thank you very much. Favorite armor / look for Guts. My favorite is actually like during the conviction arc. I like the Black Swordsman armor. I like the Berserker armor as a concept and like a magical item. Like, I think the Berserker armor is cool for what it does. But as far as like the design goes, like the actual artistic design of Guts, I really like the Black Swordsman armor, like during the conviction arc, like during the fight with Rosine, during the conviction tower, all that. That's my favorite design for Guts. I kind of really miss it. I kind of like really miss it. Like, I understand the Berserker armor is cool and it's necessary and it's got a lot of interesting facets to it, but man, I miss that Black Swordsman design. I really miss it. Who knows if plot lines like that regarding the God Hand will ever continue after Miura's death? I mean, yeah, who knows? I mean, we don't know how much of it we're going to get, you know? What do you think about the art this chapter? I really like it. I think that they're getting better every single chapter. I mean, I talked about earlier in the stream that we can never expect it to look like Miura's art because Miura is Miura. You know, no one's ever going to be able to recapture that 100%, but I think they're doing a really good job. Do you think finishing the story in 10 years is feasible? All right, well, let's think about this. All right, realistically, how many chapters do you think it would take to finish the story? If they focus on the main story, they don't do like random backstories for characters and all that stuff. If they just barrel forward, we got the war, we got, you know, Guts dealing with the Berserker armor, we got the Guts and Casca storyline, we got the Falconia sacrifice. Like, what are we, like, where are we going? All right, like, how direct are we going to be? So if we assume there's like 50 chapters left, let's say bare minimum 50 chapters left. So if we get an average of 4 chapters per year, 50 divided by 4 would be 12 years. So at the soonest, like 12 years. That's what it seems like, you know? And that's like bare minimum. You know, I think there could be like up to 100 chapters left, which would be double that. But let's say 50. Let's say there's 50 chapters left. It might take 10 to 12 years at this current rate, unless they really like boost up production, if it's possible. When will you be back on the stream with the Berserk dude? Those are great discussions, man. Oh yeah, yeah, anytime. I haven't talked to him in a while, but I mean, I'm down anytime. Yeah. Ryan, please not delete the stream. I'll watch it later. Okay. I won't. Just for you, buddy. I left my wife because... Wait, okay. Left my wife because you said to. Now you're ghosting me. Why? Did I tell you to leave your wife? Well, I must have had a good reason. So you're probably better off. I don't remember that. I might remember if you tell me. I'd like to see more of Azan. Yeah, where the fuck is he? He wasn't in this chapter. How much time did you pass for everybody outside of Elf Island? Didn't time move differently? Yeah, that was a strange thing because before they went into Elf Island, they said that time was going to move faster on the outside, but it actually seemed the reverse because the Moonlight Boy went to the island and he was there for a couple of days, but he should only be out during the full moon. So that would mean that a couple of days passed on the island while the full moon was only out for like a night in the real world. So it was actually the reverse, which is really weird, and I still don't understand it. But I think that's how it was. Edric is the God Hand member. You know, well, this is a different tangent, but I am reading Dune Messiah right now, and I was really weirded out by Edric because the first Dune is like all human beings, and Edric is like this weird mutated fish man that lives in a gas tank. And I was like really confused reading Dune Messiah. I'm like, what the fuck is Edric? Like, this is so weird and so different. I'm down for it though. Like, I'm into it. Like, don't get me wrong, I'm into it. Edric is cool. But I was like, what is that? I don't understand what Edric is. Just because, like, in the first Dune, I mean, besides humans, there's only giant sandworms, you know, but everyone else is human. So Edric being this weird, like, floating fish man, I'm like, what the fuck? But he's cool, though. I like him. Edric is cool. All right. So I got to get going, guys. I got to wrap up the stream now, but I appreciate you guys being here, man. If you guys like this idea, you know, we can do this again for the next chapter. You know, I'll do, like, a regular review, and then we'll do, like, a chapter discussion. It could be cool. I was kind of hesitant because I didn't know if it would feel like I was, like, milking, you know, the content or, like, you know, I don't know. I just didn't know if it would be a good idea. Excuse me. But if you guys liked it, if you guys are down, then maybe I'll do it for the next chapter too. So, yeah. So until next time, guys, tomorrow I'm going to do a regular stream. I know some of you guys are probably only on the channel for Berserk stuff, but I do a lot of stuff on the channel. So if you're open to it, you know, I do regular live streams. I review movies. I review other manga. If you're a horror movie fan, I talk about horror movies a lot on the channel. I do a lot of stuff, and if you're only here for Berserk, that's fine. Like that's fine. Like I'm not upset about it. But I do a lot of stuff beyond Berserk. You know, I'm reviewing the Dune series. I'm reading that for the first time. I reviewed Shin Godzilla recently, and some other stuff too. So if you guys are open to it, you know, I got more stuff going on the channel too. So check that out. If not, that's cool though. I don't, you know, whatever you're here for, I am grateful no matter what. But yeah, so I'm going to do a regular stream tomorrow. Vinland Saga chapter coming out soon. I'll review that. I'm working on the Texas Chainsaw Massacre retrospective. So if you guys are waiting for that, it might still take me like another month. I don't know. It's dude, it's a lot of work, man. Texas Chainsaw Massacre series is fucking weird. But anyways, so I'm working on that. It's Alien Day, so if you want to watch the Alien retrospective, I would appreciate that. I have a Patreon, I have channel memberships, I have a merch store. And I have all the social media links where you can follow me down below. Check me out on Twitter and Instagram. I'm pretty active on Twitter. I pretty much post on there every day. So it's probably the social media platform where I'm like the most active. So if you want to follow me and get all my crazy thoughts on the world and stuff, check me out on Twitter. Instagram as well. There's another Real Life Ryan on Instagram that has more followers than me. And I just feel like that's wrong. So follow me on there too. I also post a lot of pictures of my cat, so if you're down for that. Anyways, guys, yeah, thanks for being here, man. Really good stream. I appreciate you guys. Thanks for hanging out with me today. Be safe, everyone. Don't do drugs. Drink water. Stay hydrated. Be safe. Wear a condom. Or just, you know, pull out. Whatever you got to do.